There's two ways that you can influence people. There's two ways you can sell people. He goes, you can tell them what's wrong with what they're doing and how to fix it. And he goes, what happens is you get a lot of resistance, but if you have a good solution, you'll get buy-in because some people will buy what it is you're doing. So you can sell people that way, and oftentimes it works. He goes, another way that you can influence and sell people is you can tell them what's right with what they're doing and how to enhance it. And then you get very little resistance and you get more buy-in. And he goes, so we already have a $20 million a year company. There's a lot of stuff that you shared that can help us a lot. But because you made us feel bad by saying your marketing sucks, then all of a sudden Babs and Catherine weren't able to hear all of the great stuff you shared throughout the rest of the day because so the happy client experience, I'll just tell you this real quick. So there's three experiences. Everyone has an expectation. So you're here today, some of you for the first time, and you have an expectation of if this is going to be a good meeting or a bad meeting. And so that depends on what happens here, what I talk about, how much you like me or dislike me, whatever. So you can, an unhappy client, this is what unhappy is, they got less than what they expected. A satisfied client is they got kind of what they expected, nothing more, nothing less, it's kind of what they expected. And a loyal or a happy client got more than what they expected. And there's really, unfortunately, loyalty is a bit of a myth. There's not much loyalty in business. How many people have you ever had say, you're like the greatest business ever, I love what it is you do, I'm going to be a client for life, and then they're there for a while and then they're gone. And you can't think of anything that perhaps didn't create value for them, but they got, So for instance, I run a high level, entrepreneurial group, and entrepreneurs are very promiscuous when it comes to groups and knowledge and information. They bounce around, so they are, they're really interesting creatures, these entrepreneurs and these driven minds. And most of you, using Doug Brackman's language, who wrote the book Driven, who's a genius network member, the majority of this room, probably 90% of everyone in this room, is a hunter. You're not a farmer. Hunters are kind of anxious. Hunters have trouble sleeping. Hunters are never satisfied with most things. Hunters, don't people well with farmers. They people well with other hunters, and they're tribal, so they like getting in tribes. And hunters that have good boundaries and hunters that have good ethics change the world. Hunters that are poor boundaried and unethical, they are the tyrants. They are the people that cause massive destruction, and you can see a lot of those people in governments and tech companies and pharmaceutical companies and central banking, and they all go to the World Economic Forum and shit like that, So basically, which is a fantastic organization for tyrants. So let's make sure we get that on video and put it somewhere so I get canceled. So anyway, going back to this, when it comes to loyalty, though, the very best thing you can do for loyalty, like for instance, Harley Davidson, a company where the clientele will tattoo the name of the brand on their bodies. I mean, that's pretty loyal. But there's a Harley Davidson dealership, which is owned by your buddy Bob Parson, the founder of GoDaddy's. Cherie's friends with Bob, and that's in North Scottsdale. Then there's a Harley Davidson in Chandler, and if the Harley Davidson in North Scottsdale doesn't treat you well, but you love Harley, you'll probably go to the dealership in Chandler, that sort of thing. So there is that. So that's a happy client experience. So the bottom line is everything that we could do to create. So if you go to McDonald's, which you should never do unless you like poisoning yourself, and by the way, do you know Dr. Jeff Bland, who I'm interviewing at the annual event this year, he's the founder of functional medicine. So there's currently 130,000 functional medicine docs in the world, and he invented the whole thing. So we're going to have him at the annual event this year, and he's awesome. And me and Cherie and Dr. Sachin Patel and his wife Deepa, we're on his boat for a couple of days in July this year. And we had all kinds of discussions about seed oils, about supplements, about health, you name it. One of the interesting bits of tidbit information is that a big majority of the beef at McDonald's comes from dairy cows, which are the oldest, most injected, used up cows because they can get the beef at a much cheaper rate. So if you love eating dairy cows, just go to McDonald's. But anyway, just figured I'd throw that in just to sicken a few of you. But anyway, so if someone goes to McDonald's and you order a burger and they just throw it across the counter and don't even say thank you. It's not like you're like, oh my God, this person didn't thank me. But if you go to the Four Seasons and you spend now, what, $60 or whatever, $40, $30 for a hamburger, you expect them to say thank you. So we expect a different response depending on the clientele, the way it's packaged, where we're going. So the thing is always focus on having people get more than what they expected. And if you can do that, that's the closest we're ever going to get to loyalty. All right, so that was my little riff on that. So when I went to Dan and Bab's home, and I was doing marketing, one of the analogies I would use, and so at the time, Dan Kennedy, how many of you know grumpy ass Dan Kennedy, the marketer? All right, so Dan Kennedy was writing the majority of my sales copy. He would speak at all of my events that I was doing for carpet upholstery cleaners. I would come to his events and speak at his events because I was like this great story for him, like the dead broke carpet cleaner that built a business. So it was a good sort of positioning thing. And he had this great way of positioning people that you don't have any relationship with versus people that you do, and why you would write sales letters and why you would do marketing. And back then, the vast majority of marketing was still direct mail. There was very little email marketing. Dean Jackson, who at 1:20 p.m. Is Dean actually online yet?
Yes.
Oh, he is. Okay, wonderful. So Dean's on. So later this afternoon, me and Dean and Alex Mandozian are going to talk for a little bit about marketing, because at the last Genius Network meeting, we got like rave reviews about the section that we did on marketing and where I talked about pricing, and people commented like, okay, now I understand why you raised your prices and Genius Network, that sort of stuff, and people really like the marketing thing. So Dean didn't even invent the squeeze page till 1997. I had my first website in 1996, but even back in 1999, there wasn't a ton of e-commerce. Amazon was relatively new, and Dean Jackson, many of you are friends with him and know him. He invented the squeeze page for a book called Stop Your Divorce, and then he created this model where people had to enter their email or their name and email in order to go to the next page. That ended up becoming the modern day opt-in page, which now, millions and millions of websites use. How many of you have an opt-in page on your website? Well, the guy who invented it, we'll be having a conversation with at 1:20 p.m. today. That's Dean Jackson, smart dude. So basically, Dan Kennedy had this thing where, so let's say you have a mountain, and over here is where you want, if you want to sell something to somebody, even if you're not trying to get money out of them. Let's say Jennifer Hootie, who was recently married, ends up divorcing this kind of bum husband she has, Alex, and decides she wants to, have another partner. It doesn't need to be money. It could just be a relationship. It could be whatever you want. I'm saying that jokingly. Alex is cool. So, and Mary Morrissey performed the wedding, and she's like the best at performing weddings. She's awesome. So over here, yeah. So I could just, there's this dialogue going on between me and Jennifer right now. The most you have no idea what's going. So money, the gold at the end of the rainbow, where you want the person to be. So here's a point here though, where sales and marketing take place. So you want gravity to work in your favor so you don't have to work really hard. When things are hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating is where you have to start here and try to convince and talk everyone to get them over here. But if you can put, marketing is anything you put in front of somebody that gets them over the hill, so that you're pulling a string downhill, you're not pushing. Gravity is on your side. So I just drew this graph out at Dan and Bab's house, and I said you can have someone who's either an annoying pest, and this is Dan Kennedy language, annoying pest, or on this side, what would it be?
Welcome guest.
Welcome guest, exactly. Thank you, Paris. How many of you do not know the name Paris Lampropoulos?
They should.
Like truly, like everyone here knows Paris?
No.
Okay, no, Paris is one of the top copywriters in the world. Literally, I would imagine billions of dollars have been made from what you have written. So yeah, so Paris could get up here and do a far better job than I'm doing right now with all this. So you got the welcome, you got the annoying pest and the welcome guest. And so I shared all this stuff with Dan and Babs. And I was like, let's create like my version of a consumer guide for carpet cleaning. You know, when someone's like, how much you charge? It's like, well, that's because they have no other criteria on how to make a buying decision. So how do you share things with them in a way to where it kind of walks them up the hill? And I was using 24-hour free recorded messages, and Strategic Coach didn't have a 24-hour free recorded message. I said, instead of them talking to a salesperson, have them call and listen to a free recorded message on what Strategic Coach is, misconceptions about coaching, all these different things. The same sort of stuff that I taught Bill Phillips, the same sort of stuff I was teaching my carpet and upholstery cleaners, all the stuff that I was doing. And so I shared all this stuff with them about how to get people over here. So by the time they talk to a salesperson, it's like what later Robert Cialdini wrote the book Persuasion. It's not the selling that takes place, it's what you do in advance. That's what marketing does. So if like Paris writes a sales letter, that sales letter is designed to get someone who's close to here to just, so you're more in the order taking business than the sales business, right? So I had created this sort of model for them. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there. So I do the whole day of consulting with Dan and Babs. I thought it was awesome. They thank me. I go to my hotel. The next day we're having the Strategic Coach meeting, and I had done the day of consulting with them before my Strategic Coach class. So when I get there, Dan's like, can we talk? And I'm like, sure. And so we go in one of the conference rooms in Chicago, and he's like, he goes, you know this chart that you showed us? And he drew it on a piece of paper because Dan's really good at drawing. And he goes, how do you think the day went yesterday? I go, I thought it was great. He goes, well, he goes, so here, he goes, where you showed this welcome guest and annoying pests, he goes, I'm over here. He goes, I loved what you had to say. However, the first thing you said when we started was your marketing sucks, and Babs runs the company and our marketing director was sitting there. So you just insulted them, and now I have to do a sales job on Babs in order to get her over here, because right here, you're like an annoying pest to her because you insulted her. And I never at that point in my life had like that sort of experience, because I'm like, I really go out of my way to deliver as much value, always have. Like I want to do my best to try to impress people with what I know, not impress them, but transfer it to them so they could actually use it. And I had the track record of like transforming the lives of all of these carpet cleaners in a very short period of time. And then Bill Phillips, and all these other, I had different clients and different consulting I was doing. So I never had like, holy shit, they're not really taking my, they're not really taking my advice. But Dan said something so important, and this is the whole point of this lead up here, is he said, he goes, there's two ways that you can influence people. There's two ways you can sell people. He goes, you can tell them what's wrong with what they're doing and how to fix it. And he goes, what happens is you get a lot of resistance, but if you have a good solution, you'll get buy-in, because some people will buy what it is you're doing. So you can sell people that way, and oftentimes it works. He goes, another way that you can influence and sell people is you can tell them what's right with what they're doing and how to enhance it. And then you get very little resistance and you get more buy-in. And he goes, so we already have a $20 million a year company. There's a lot of stuff that you shared that can help us a lot. But because you made us feel bad by saying your marketing sucks, then all of a sudden Babs and Catherine weren't able to hear all of the great stuff you shared throughout the rest of the day because so when I said, we're going to film some of you saying some stuff and it can and will be used to enhance you, I'm saying that jokingly, but the thing is, what I've learned over and over again, I sit down with people all the time that want to tell me how to run my business, but they point out how fucked up things are. And I point out how fucked up things are, and I will do that throughout the day, mostly for people like Mike Koenig is an example. Really? No, I'm kidding. So, no, but Mike, we're disagreeing because he's shaking his head. Yeah, so the thing is, there's a way and a timing, and there's a tempo, and there's a certain rapport. Now, I can tell them today that their marketing sucks in different areas because I have trust and I have rapport with them. But at the time, in the beginning, I just didn't have enough trust and rapport to where they took it as an insult instead of me saying, hey, because I have never walked into a business where there is not something that's incredibly messed up if you open enough closets. You know, metaphorically speaking. I mean, and I always love the line that Gary Halbert would say, everything's a clusterfuck until it's as smooth as silk. And so when you're starting almost anything, there's going to be messes, and I believe that all of the opportunities that we have come from the things that are not working. I love the line from Rossi, which is, wherever there's anxiety, there's opportunity. So most of the opportunities that we have come from that. But the thing is if you're trying to help somebody, like we're going to do a hot seat tomorrow, and if you're trying to help someone, like listen with your own clients, try this out, because I've shared this with a lot of people and it makes a big difference, is look at, you know, if you want to, part of the first conversation I had about this was Steven Kotler, the flow guy. I spent 90 minutes on the phone with him a couple days ago, and he's wanted me to help him map out this $250,000 coaching, personal coaching, he's thinking about doing with people. And we talked, Mike, a lot about AI, because he was at the last 100K meeting, and he's like, I've never done it before. And I go, well, Steve, you're also one of these guys that has this attitude that everyone sucks until proven they don't suck, right? Everyone's guilty until proven innocent in his mind. He recorded this great video for me that I didn't even ask him to do, based on me telling him that a couple days earlier. And he thinks most marketers are complete liars, which many are. And we have great rapport. I've known him for a long ass time. I've helped him. He writes Peter Diamandis' books with Peter, and so Steven's he's been nominated for 3 Pulitzer Prizes. He's a great author. He's written 14 books, and he's thinking about doing this thing. And I said, okay, he's asking me, how would I sell it? How would I package it? How do I present it? I go, how do you sell something for $250,000? I'm like, well, you got to sell the result. You got to figure out what the return is going to be. No one, no one's. Not a single one of you wakes up every day and says, I really hope I run into someone selling a $35,000 a year group, right? A $100,000 a year group. I'm really hoping I run into a $250,000 sales. And like, every day we are hoping we avoid salespeople at all costs, because someone's going to try to get our money, right? But when someone does selling right, you don't even know you're being sold. See, people love to be sold. They hate to be pressured. So the question is, how do you position it? How do you package that sort of stuff? And I said, okay, Steve, so what for the first thing is not how do you sell a $250,000 thing. It's how do you identify who the hell would even be a candidate for something like that, and how does your methodology help them take that $250,000 and turn it into $1 million, or into $5 million, or to $10 million, or takes their insanely overwhelmed life, because he's the top flow expert in the world right now. And how many of you have not seen my interview that I recently did with him? Have not. How many of you have seen it? Okay, it's really good. At least I think it is. Not because of anything I did. He's just a smart guy. I'm just asking him questions. And when you're in a flow state, you're 500% more productive, 5 times more productive. So if you can get yourself into a flow state, you can get more done on a single day than you could in 5 days. And if that really could be learned and transferred and developed, that would be very valuable to the right type of person. So what I shared with him is, let's identify who these people are. How do you reach them? And then secondly, because I'm very clever, I said, why don't you take me through the first process so you can teach this shit to me, and then I'll be a poster child for that, which of course is a good benefit to him too. And and plus it allows me to deepen my understanding, and I'm genuinely interested in everything that he does, because it's fascinating stuff. I went skiing for the first time in 30 years because of his book, In Our Country, with Cherie, who's a far better skier than I am. So anyway, the point is I said, the big thing though is you got to shift the way that you approach people. It's not what's wrong with them and how you're going to fix them with all this flow stuff. It's like, let's find people that are already badass and how to make them better. That's the main reason I do Genius Network. In order to step into this, like, I've sold tens of millions of dollars of courses in information products and stuff. And believe me, I'm like the epitome of a self-help junkie sort of personality. Like, I was broke. I went to seminars that I couldn't afford. I was living on credit cards. I was buying everything because I got FOMO, and then that sort of gets managed but never fully goes away. So I have Tom's disease, which is terrified of missing shit. I've had that, you know, from an early age, and so I'm always curious. It's part of the driven mind. But I applied what I learned, and I kept getting better, and I kept getting better, and and I've spent, you know, a couple $1 million on my own personal education. I spend more money on groups and hiring people than I charge anyone in this room for, because I'm a big believer in parlaying that. But you know, the thing is it is easier to sell to players with money because they're better clients. They have the financial means, they've already been through the trenches, they already have that sort of stuff. So part of it is whoever your clients are, look at all the messaging you're doing, look at what your salespeople are saying to them. And if you take the approach of, you know, you're already awesome, let's make you more awesome, even if there's a lot of work to do, and believe me, it's really hard for me to do this in addiction recovery. When I'm sitting down with someone who's, you know, having affairs, they have sexually transmitted diseases, they're in debt, they're possibly stealing, lying, embezzling, or they're potentially going to jail because they have broken a law, it's really hard to like look at what you're doing right and how to, but if they step foot in a 12-step room, if they're even asking for help, that's the first step. And so when you acknowledge that, even when someone's in the worst possible states, and you can think in your own life, when you've been in your worst possible state, like you're feeling terrible about yourself, you're embarrassed, you've made a bad mistake, you've gotten taken advantage of, someone totally betrayed you, you know, and then someone's telling you, man, your life is really messed up, we need to get your shit together, you're just like, you're already deflated, you're already defeated. And so what you gravitate towards, someone that gives you a sense of hope, a sense of like belief in yourself, and it's always there, it's always there, it's just finding it, identifying it. And I think, you know, I think right now the world is so untrusting because of the sheer volume of propaganda lies that is constantly being poured at everybody right now. I think this approach is just, I just wanted to share it because I thought it might be helpful. So hopefully that was. Any questions about anything before we show you some really amazing videos on how to use the restroom? Okay.
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.